Morning, the Prime Minister is facing renewed calls for his resignation after pictures of him were leaked that appeared to show him partying in Downing Street. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps is with us on the programme this morning. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Thanks for joining us. Have you been offered a cup of tea?
I have not, but
Thank
you very much.
Don't you worry. 4 bottles of wine, 2 bottles of fizz, bottle of gin, 8 blurred-out people. How do we explain that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've talked about this before because, as I've told you, my own dad was in hospital during this period. We thought we'd lost him. In fact, we didn't see him for the best part of 4 months. Mm-hmm. I've talked about my, anger about that in the past. However, I think these are things that we've known about. The Prime Minister has said it shouldn't have happened, and he has apologised. And of course, the police have spent their time investigating it as well. So I don't think the fact of the pictures, us seeing them for the first time, changes what the police and Sue Gray would have already known.
Yeah, but the Prime Minister did say that he thought that everybody was following the rules.
Yes, and look, I don't want to say otherwise because I'm disappointed to see what happened in Downing Street, and we know now because the police have issued fines that wasn't right. And but the Prime Minister has completely reformed Downing Street, set up a new office of the Prime Minister, has a new permanent secretary running that, so it's completely reorganised, has apologised, which I think is very important, and of course it's been thoroughly investigated.
How disappointed are you with the Prime Minister?
Well, I don't think these things should have happened, but I think it's probably worth recalling in context that throughout this period, the Prime Minister himself had been seriously ill, had a close brush with coronavirus. He lost his mum during the period. He's dealing with the pandemic. By the looks of things, he goes and thanks somebody who's leaving, raises a glass to them. And, as I say, I having, like everyone in this country, lived through coronavirus and in many cases made enormous sacrifices, don't enjoy seeing pictures that suggest anything else. But this is well-covered territory. We have seen this, we've known about this, and the only difference is seeing the photograph.
Sure. I mean, the problem is, Transport Secretary, that he misled Parliament, didn't he?
No, I don't. Look, the question is, was he down there partying? No, clearly not. He'd gone by to say thanks and raise a glass to a colleague who was leaving. The answer to this, of course, is that the police have spent a lot of time with a lot of people and a lot of resources crawling over it. And they've come to their conclusion, as we know, he wasn't fined for that then. I
understand that, but there's a difference between the police investigation and what he said in Parliament. And if you'll indulge me, I just want to remind our viewers what happened on the 8th of December and the question at Prime Minister's Questions from the Labour MP, Catherine West, who specifically asked about this event.
Will the Prime Minister tell the House whether there was a party in Downing Street on the 13th of November?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no, but I'm sure that whatever happened, the guidance was followed and the rules were followed at all times.
Comfortable with that?
Yeah. Well, look, as I say, he goes down. I mean, I see his red boxes are in which is his work boxes. So it looks to me like he goes down on his way out of the office and thanks the staff and raises a glass and doesn't in his mind recognise that as a party. And indeed, the police have looked into this, spent a lot of time and resources, as I say. And I'm not.
But let me just pick you up there, if I may, Transport Secretary, because people who were at that event have been fined.
Well, and we know from other events, including the birthday, event, that some people in the room were and some people weren't, and the police will have the reason. But I'm not there to double guess either the Met Police or, in fact, the Durham Police, who are looking at different incidents. Yeah. And they have to look at the evidence along with Sue Gray and come to their conclusions. And I know in the case of the police, they have Sue Gray.
I'm not asking about the police. I'm asking about what he said in Parliament when he said there was no event on the 13th of November. What did he think was happening when there were all these bottles on the table?
Well, look, I think probably what happened is he's at the end of a busy day. He walks down, he says cheers to somebody who's worked there and walks out. And to him, that is not a party. But actually, of course, we know that there's a final stage to this, which is MPs themselves, through the Privileges Committee, will be looking into what he said to Parliament as well. So we'll even have... I mean, this thing has been pretty well investigated, I would say.
No,
and there will be further investigations, so you won't be short of further investigation.
I get that, but there were more than 2 people in one room and there was booze on the table. And he was there and he said later on in Parliament that nothing happened. What did he think people were doing?
Well, he will have been in and out of rooms with lots of people who are working on coronavirus lots of the time. Someone's leaving, he goes and thanks them and raises a glass. Now, look, I don't, as I said to you, I have personal reasons for feeling quite strongly emotional about that period of time and the sacrifices that people were making, myself included. So, I don't seek to defend it, nor does the Prime Minister, in fact. He's apologised. I think that the police, Sue Gray, and the Privileges Committee are the right places for these things to be looked into. The police have already done their job. As I say, I don't attempt to second-guess their work, whether that's the Met Police or indeed the Durham Police with the Leader of the Opposition. That is the police's job, to look at those things and make their determinations.
We have confirmation this morning that the meeting that took place between Sue Gray and the Prime Minister. Yesterday, the Minister told us that it was at the instigation of Sue Gray. Then Number 10 told us otherwise. We're being told this morning, it's been confirmed, that during that meeting, the Prime Minister asked Sue Gray to drop the report.
Look, I wasn't at the meeting, but I know there were officials there. The meeting was actually arranged by officials just on the timing and logistics of the report. So beyond that, I'm afraid I don't have any useful information.
How would you feel about the suggestion that the Prime Minister had asked for this report to be dropped, given that publicly he said that he was looking forward to it?
Well look, I haven't seen that
no, but what do you think,
confirmation.
It's really important to know. My viewers this morning will think, what do you mean he asked for the report to be dropped?
Well, as I say, I wasn't in the room, so I don't know that's the case.
How would you feel if it had been the case?
What I do know is it's perfectly normal and proper. In fact, it happened before Sue Gray's interim report for there to be a brief conversation where they just talk about timing and logistics of the report. Exactly what was discussed, I don't know. But, fortunately, and I think this is one of the great things about this country, we live in a country where, everybody has to stick by the rules. When they don't, for example, the fixed penalty notice that we've seen is issued. We have proper processes in place, and Sue Gray, I know from the interim report, let alone what she may well say next, has identified a number of shortcomings in Number 10 from that period of time. The Prime Minister's already picked up on a whole series of them and made very fundamental reforms in Downing Street, including a brand new Office of the Prime Minister, which we've never had in this country before, to make sure that propriety and ethics are followed at every turn.
You talk about propriety and ethics. The person that is carrying out what we're told was an independent report is called into the office of the Prime Minister and said, drop the report.
No, look, again, I wasn't there. I don't know that's the case.
We have independently confirmed that happened.
Well, again, I haven't heard that, but what I do know is
How do you feel about that?
Well, hold on a minute. First of all, let's deal with the facts. What I do know is it was officials in Number 10 who arranged for the two of them to have a brief discussion.
They were both in the same room.
But it was a technical discussion about timing of the report,
Prime Minister asked to drop the report.
And a totally normal thing to happen before a report like this is published. And quite what they discussed, you seem to have had more information about the inside of the meeting than I do.
You'd be surprised where
I wasn't there. I'm very impressed. Well, the only thing I have to say is that sometimes, occasionally, things get reported which are not entirely accurate. The civil service were there to make sure that all the correct processes were followed. So I've no particular reason for concern about the two of them meeting. That's normal. It happened before the interim report. And unless we're, casting aspersions on Sue Gray, which I don't think anyone is.
No, we're not.
No, I don't think anyone is.
Aren't.
We'll have to wait to hear from Sue. But I can assure you Sue Gray will be completely open, and she has a fearsome reputation. So I'm sure we'll find out.
Strong women, they really get under your skin, don't they? As far as the police are concerned, should they be looking... are you completely comfortable that there were no more fines for the Prime Minister, given that somebody who was actually at the same event that the Prime Minister was at saying that they felt that it was completely unfair? I can't work out why he's not been fined and other people have. The Met's a shambles.
Well, look, I'm not here to criticise the Met. They have a job to do. They threw in loads of resources to this. A lot of people have spent a fortune on it. I think you were asking me about it last time I was on. Have spent a fortune on it and have turned over all of the evidence that they had enormous access to. So I'm not here to sort of second-guess did the police get this right or wrong. As I say, the police have a difficult job to do in all these circumstances, whether it's the Prime Minister cheering holding a glass up to say cheers to somebody who's leaving, and whether he was therefore just dropping by to move on, or
still against the law at the time.
Well, I was going to say in the case of the birthday wishes event, some people seem to have received fines and some didn't. I don't know why. And similarly, we've got this police investigation of the leader of the opposition and the deputy leader of the opposition up in Durham, and I don't seek to second-guess what they're doing either. I think we have to let the police in this country, who are entirely independent, get on with their job.
OK, so just before we move on, because I want to ask you about Ukraine, you're completely comfortable about that photographs on the front page of the papers?
Well, look, I'm not. I've already told you I couldn't see my own dad for a long period of time because we were obeying the rules. But I also accept that the Prime Minister has long since apologised, has made fundamental reforms in Number 10, and I've no doubt if he had his time again, would not have dropped by to say thank you to a member of staff leaving. So no, I'm not, but it is what it is. And we're about to talk about Ukraine, and there are potential for industrial action on our railways, many other things that the country does need to get on
well,
with.
let's move on to Ukraine. What are we doing to try to get this grain out of Odessa?
Well, I'm very concerned about it. I met with my opposite number, Alexander Kubrikov, last week, who's the infrastructure transport Secretary of State in Ukraine. I met with him in Germany last week, and we were discussing details which I can't go into, but about how infrastructure could be in place to ensure that grain leaves. I'm specifically concerned with the situation in Ukraine. We've seen this barbaric invasion by Putin. What really worries me is we've seen many lives lost in Ukraine. We could see even more lives lost in other places in the world through grain and food shortages, which could be even greater than the lives lost in the war directly. So we do need to find solutions to getting this.
Are we going to try and organise safe passage?
Well, we're looking at all the different options, and as I don't want to go into detail with my conversation with Kubrikov, but there are lots of different potential ways to get grain and other goods out of the country, and indeed goods into the country as well. I think it's absolutely essential that we do, otherwise there could be a lot of hunger, indeed even famine, which could dwarf the numbers involved in the war itself.
Some of the papers this morning suggesting that we may send military ships down there in order to try to organise that safe passage.
You will have seen the speculation. I can't go into specific detail. There are a lot of complexities to this, including mined waters in the near Odessa port. Clearly, the situation with Russia and Putin and their approach to this could make that very difficult. But as I say, the big top line is it's hard to overestimate the extent to which Ukraine was and is the breadbasket of the world. Actually, their flag, which is the blue on top is the sky and the yellow underneath, is actually the grain or the corn or the wheat. It's the fields. And it's because they are such a big producer of the world's food. So it is important that we seek to help them find ways to get it out.
Closer to home, if we have a rail strike, are we going to prioritise freight trains so that there is still food on the shelves?
Yes, we'll do exactly that. But look, I love the railways, and I know the people who work on them do as well. I don't want to see strikes on our railways. I think this is very, very premature. I noticed that the unions were saying it's because they want their pay unfrozen. It is going to be unfrozen. No one's talking about pay staying where it was. We do have to balance rail workers with the needs of doctors and nurses and teachers and the rest of the public service. So it is important that we get that balance right. The taxpayer has put in £16 billion. That's £600 per family household, whether you use the trains or not. And we've done that to keep the trains running. No one lost their jobs during coronavirus, but we do need to reform our railways. So I'm looking to get this resolved. I want the unions to do that as well. I urge them not to call strikes. I think it will be completely counterproductive to a railway, which frankly is on life support, and that could give it a heart attack.
But just to confirm, that you will prioritise freight trains if necessary?
Correct, yeah.
OK, so we don't need to worry about empty shelves?
No, we'll make sure that we get... Because freight and distribution and the supply chain are absolutely critical. And talking about food from Ukraine, making sure that distribution, both of energy and food, nationally takes place is very important. And we'll prioritise that. But I think it's important to recognise, our railways can't carry on. We've lost a quarter of our passengers and a quarter of the income, and actually they haven't been reformed for many, many years. I want to build up a bigger railway ultimately, but I need to work in cooperation with the unions on that, and I really hope that they'll do that, rather than, as I say, essentially, just as the railways are trying to recover, give it a heart attack. We
are out of time, but I throw enough brickbats at you. A bouquet in the form of a road haulier who I spoke to in Wigan last week, and he said it's got much better for road haulage now, and there aren't the challenges that they had before. So next time Grant Shapps is on your programme, can you tell him? So there you go.
Thank you. Well, we took 33 measures to try to help that market and get freight moving again, and I'm pleased to hear that.
It's good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed, Mr. Shapps.